again, the broadband engineering department within Windstream, it's got a lot of responsibility for upgrading the DSLAMs, installing our broadband network equipment, and monitoring capacity on the network. I basically have three things to cover tonight. How Windstream designs networks, both on an overall, high-level, generic standpoint, and then I'll address the map and talk about some specifics on Jefferson's network.
Can you turn it towards you? Thank you, sir.
There we go. Then I'll talk about some of the specifics that we have in progress, the upgrades that we have in progress, the technology that we're using for the upgrades, and then I'll discuss the timeline to complete those upgrades. Betty covered a lot of this high level. Again, ultimately, 100% of the customers in Jefferson, and not just the Jefferson city limits, but from a Windstream perspective, is the Jefferson Exchange, which includes a significant portion of the county as well.
I'm sorry, sir. Can we get what towns it includes? I know we've got several people here that are from outside the immediate Jefferson area.
Yes, and the map will be available after we conclude. Everyone can come up and kind of see, where do I live? Where does that leave? Leave them in the timeline to get upgrades done. So network design from a high level. Windstream's broadband network is designed in a very pyramidal fashion. And at the bottom of that pyramid is, as Betty mentioned, something called a DSLAM. And that's a digital subscriber line access multiplexer. That's the first point in our network where we aggregate customers onto a uplink circuit or a backhaul circuit. The copper wires run from your house to the DSLAM and terminate there. The second level in the pyramid is the BRAS. That stands for Broadband Remote Access Server. And as Betty mentioned again, the BRAS layer for Jefferson is in Commerce. And then we asked to go back to the map on the screen. That shows the third aggregation layer, which is the internet drain. And for all of Georgia, that comes out of Atlanta. I'm not sure if you can hear me if I go up to the map. Okay. So, as I mentioned earlier, the highlighted, the shaded areas, the yellow, green, and let's call it pink, represent the Jefferson Exchange, which does include all of the Jefferson City limits, and then areas up towards Pendergrass. This is moving over towards Nicholson, I believe it is. And what the colors represent and the various sections on the map are what Windstream refers to as a customer serving area. And that is basically an area served by one or two or multiple DSLAMs all in the same location, all accessing the same copper wire section of plant that goes to a neighborhood or to a couple of neighborhoods. All of these DSLAMs then, as I mentioned, aggregate to the BRAS in Commerce, Georgia. And we've already installed 2 new BRASs in Commerce. These systems are up and operating, and we've started the process of migrating customers to them. All right. So the point here is there's 3 levels to our network. The uppermost and biggest level is not experiencing any congestion or latency. To get individual customers across Jefferson fixed, we've had to upgrade the bottom 2 layers, the BRAS layer and then the DSLAM layer.
Can I ask you a question, sir?
Sure.
The 2 new BRAS units, those are in addition to the ones that you have, or those are replacements?
They are in addition to the ones that we have. Ultimately, at some point down the road, there'll be replacements, but the older 3 will be in service for quite some time,
migrate customers off. One other note about the aggregation in Commerce is it serves all of Windstream's area, in the county, Commerce itself, Jefferson, Brazelton. So it really is a fairly large aggregation point, and we're focused on migrating customers, as we do upgrades onto the new equipment, but it'll take a while before we actually decommission the older systems.
Thank you.
Okay, so a little bit more specifics on how we're upgrading the network, and there's three phases involved. One, I talked about already, the new BRAS layers in place. The second piece is we have to get each DSLAM in the market upgraded with a new circuit, and that's a gigabit Ethernet circuit. Unless you're in IT or telecom, that may not mean a whole lot, but ultimately what that means is that the new Ethernet circuits are somewhere between 10 and 20 times bigger, carrying 10 to 20 times the traffic as the existing circuits, backhaul network that we have in place today. And that's depending, 10 to 20 times is depending upon what exists today. We've got several different size networks out there today.
Can you tell us the technical terms for the ones that exist now, please, sir?
They're all ATM based, which that stands for asynchronous transfer mode. That's the one generation back. Ethernet is the latest generation. It is very analogous to the wireless networks moving from 3G to 4G. So we're kind of undergoing the same upgrades that you've seen the wireless networks, Verizon, AT&T. They've all done sort of the same thing. And then thirdly, you see the four areas in pink. That's the four sections of the exchange where to provide a gigabit Ethernet circuit, we've got to bury new fiber, run new fiber out to the DSLAM in order to have the capacity. And so let me talk about colors a little bit and timeline. The sections in green are, we've completed the upgrades, both at the DSLAM level and, as I already mentioned, at the BRAS level. That represents 63% of the subscribers in the exchange. The yellow areas, the completion date for those is the 30th of July. And that's another, that's another 27% of the subscribers in the area. And then finally, where we do have to plow new fiber, that's going to take us a little bit longer. Those four areas will be finished by the 30th of September. And those, as you get further out in the network, you get a little bit more rural. That represents only the last 10% of the customers in the exchange. So just to recap a little bit what we talked about, some of the takeaways for everybody here. It's a multi-layer network. We have to fix every layer in order for the individual user to see the speeds that they want to see network improvement. We still have 41% of the DSLAMs in the exchange to finish upgrades on. We will finish, as we said several times, by the 30th of September. One other factor that I've not mentioned yet, once we get the new network in place, we get a new DSLAM, a new circuit, and the new BRAS in, we have to do a migration. And we typically do 100 or 200 or maybe 300 customers at a time. We're very careful. There's a lot of planning, a lot of review. As we do that migration, the last thing we want to do is have a significant network outage that's self-inflicted pain. While we're moving you, something goes wrong and the customer experiences an outage for a day or two. So That's the very last step. Once the new network is in place, it does take a couple weeks after that to plan for and execute a migration.
Can you explain that? I know we've got several professionals here from a technical standpoint, so, because everything else I get, but the migration, I didn't understand.
So in many cases, it's a completely new network. We will actually have multiple DSLAMs installed in the serving area.
Yes.
You know, one of which all of the customers are connected to, and then the other one being the new DSLAM connected to the new aggregators. All of the copper lines have to be transferred from the old DSLAM to the new DSLAM. And they have to be done very orderly and methodically, because if we get the copper line to customer A confused with the copper line to customer B as we do the migration, then the provisioning doesn't work out right and service will be down.
So if I may ask a question, the green completed upgrades, those still haven't been migrated?
They have.
They have been migrated?
Everything in green is completely done.
Okay. With access to the new VRADs?
Correct.
Thank you, sir.
Should the speeds equally be showing improvement there if all that's been done?
Yes. Anybody in green should be getting, the speeds that are as advertised.
Sorry to say no.
And if they are not,
If they're not, then there could be something still not right with the copper lines between the DSLAM and the house.
that last one.
It could be something inside the house, the wiring. But from a network perspective, from the DSLAM out to the internet drains, that portion of the network, is fixed and it is capable of carrying everybody's service to the full extent.
So, if I may, and I know that you've got a team here, where would they start if they're not getting that service and that, obviously they're paying for it? Where would they start the process of getting that resolved so that they get consistent service that you've built out?
So if anybody here, is in the green areas and is still not getting good service, there's two options. One, call into our service center, or that's a big reason why Joey is with us today. If you would see him after the meeting is over, he'll take your name and your address and phone number and start the process of investigating why you're still not seeing the service you expect.
So what max speeds are we talking about here in the Jefferson area?
The max speed that we offer today in the Jefferson area is 12 meg. And then we also offer 6 meg and 3 meg service.
So even with all these upgrades, that's the most that we'll see?
Point of the upgrades is to make sure that everybody that has ordered service at 6 or 12 meg is getting that service. What you've asked is a marketing question.
Let me ask you a question on what you just said. So Windstream knows that people aren't getting the speeds they're paying for? Is that what you just said?
Well, we know we're getting a lot of complaints, yes.
I'm sorry, can I just throw a question? Are we talking download or upload speed?
We'll have questions
Okay.
afterwards. So, because when you say upgrade to me, I'm expecting faster speeds than 12. I mean, to me, an upgrade to our current system, we already get 12. I mean, some of our businesses downtown, some of our citizens are getting 12, but not all the time, not consistently. I know in my business downtown, we never get more than 9, even though I'm paying for 12. At home, I can pay for 6, I get 6. I have no complaints about that. But a lot of my constituents are paying for 6, and they're not getting anywhere close to 6. I'm talking about modem, dial-up speeds, less than dial-up speeds.
So as Betty mentioned, we've been here several times. We understand that there are some service issues, in the Jefferson market. What I'm explaining is the upgrades that we're making to the market to make sure that we relieve congestion. That for 100% of the customers, if you're paying for 6.
So the congestion is not, because you were talking about how the wiring could be bad within the house. And then I have a problem with that because I'm seeing some of our citizens who are paying for 6, but one day they get 6, next day they get 3, the next day they get 0.56. So to me, that's not an issue in the house. That is a network issue where it is clogging up. I understand that. I understand your network is a bottleneck on it, and that you need to upgrade that to allow, you said 10 to 20 times more traffic through those lines, which is great, but we're gonna grow. So by the time you get that 10 or 20, we're gonna be larger. We're gonna have more people hitting that internet, and there's gonna be more devices out there. I mean, our kids, it's amazing what they're doing, and I mean, you know how much has changed in 2 or 3 years.
Right.
Think what is gonna change in the next 5 or 6.
Right. And I've got 3 kids at home, and none of them watch TV on the TV. They all watch TV on.
But I was saying, there's 5 years from now, we'll have the same discussion. If all you're doing is upgrading us to what we currently should be getting. That's the issue I have.
Can I rephrase that? What percentage extra capacity will we have once all the upgrades are finished by September 30th? In other words, you gave us a number on the transit out of Atlanta, 52%, 62% for those numbers. Can you give us an estimate of what area we would have to grow?
I can't at this time, other than say that there is, especially at the BRAS level, considerable, room for additional circuits and growth to the drains. And that's really what you're concerned about. And even in the DSLAMs that we're putting in, they have a 1 gigabit per second connection into the new BRAS. Almost all of them have the capability now to grow to a 10 gigabit connection into the BRAS, if at the time that becomes necessary.
Sir, honestly, I think that time's here.
Well,
Because we're having, if all that green area, which is pretty much all of Jefferson, has already been upgraded. That means you're not going to improve anything that we have today. Well, we're having a mess.
I'll reiterate this, if you're in one of the sections that's still green, or that's green and you're still having poor service, it should not be due to the aggregation network that I've discussed. Now, there may be other problems that we need to look into, but, for instance, the difference is down here in this area, the network is part of the problem. The aggregation network is part of the problem. When we upgrade the aggregation network, there may be instances where a customer is still seeing slow speeds, but at that point, it's not the aggregation network.
Well, let me preface what I'm about to say with, I actually like Windstream. I get what I pay for, and I actually have been in IT for 34 years. I have my own business, and I'm a consultant, and I usually get what I pay for. I pay for 6, I'm usually around 6. Occasionally, I'll see it drop to 3, but then goes back to 6 within an hour. So you're saying that 3 is a problem internally in my house? That's wrong. That's wrong to say that. The problem has to be bottleneck at your network. Because there's no way that I would go from 6 all the time to 3 on occasion if I had a problem in the house. It would be at 3, and it would stay at 3. It would stay kind of consistent, 2.5, 3.5, but it wouldn't go back up to 6 without me doing a thing in my house.
And so, without knowing where exactly on the map you live and what your service address is and looking into it, I'm not sure I can address you specifically.
Well, I'm not asking you to address me specifically. What I'm asking you to address them, because we have heard over and over again, and you guys have heard it. They're screaming at you more than they're screaming at me about their speeds. And if you've been watching this online petition that's been going around, they're showing speeds in there that are less than dial-up. 5,
Right,
6. I mean, dial-up's been gone for 10 years or 8 years. So it worries me that I like the numbers. You're showing me all this payroll you paid. 62 million in payroll. Well, that honestly, if you run a business normally, that's payroll's anywhere from 10% of your income. You're making $700 million in Georgia, but you're paying 62 I said you're paying that payroll, but that's 700 million. I'd like to see more than 1.2 million come back to our area to improve. We are a growth area. Jackson County we're gonna grow amazing, I hope, in the next 5, 6, 7, 10 years. Because we're the next growth out of Atlanta. When that, and then now it's coming out this way, okay? We have to be able to sell these type of things to people that we want to move here, that we want them to come here, we want their businesses to come here. I guarantee you that I can create a list of people that'll tell me that they don't